So, good afternoon to all of you, and I won't take too much time, but what I'm going to do now is share with you about how to actually purify the mind. So before that, I have to kind of point out to you what has made the mind defiled, why the mind is dirty. It's because the mind is dirty that we have to purify. So what made the mind to be impure? So it's actually the negative thoughts. We call the impurities of mind called the 5 hindrances. Thoughts about sensual pleasures, thoughts about arising from hatred, they call kama chanda vyapada, and thina midda is thoughts that's going to kind of contract the mind. The sadness or that feeling of depression, the feeling of that sleepiness, the thoughts that brings the mind to contract. They deplete the energy of the mind. So thoughts that's going to deplete the energy of the mind, and then the thoughts that's going to make the mind feel restless, the anxieties and worries, they call the uddhacca kukkucca. And the other one is the vicikicca, the thought that gives rise to the tension in your mind. So these are the 5 hindrances that actually keeps you away from a pure state of mind. If there's no hindrances in your mind, you actually experience the state of what we call the samadhi or the jhanas. So what's lying between that jhana and where you are now is the hindrances. So purifying the mind means we are trying to remove these 5 hindrances. So before we come to that level, we need to go back to another level where we should be able to identify the thoughts that's giving rise to these 5 hindrances, and then we must make an effort to remove these thoughts. When they arise, we must take steps to remove them. Buddha teaches this in Dvedha Vittaka Sutta. He says, monks, there is something that I have been doing ever since that I took the aspiration to become a Buddha. What is it that I have been doing? Buddha says that I actually recognize that there is this bad thoughts and good thoughts. And when I saw there is a bad thought arisen in my mind, I quickly get rid of it. I quickly kicked it out. I didn't let it linger. And when I saw a good thought, I developed it. Buddha says this. And so Buddha goes on to explain what are the good thoughts, what are the bad thoughts. First let's talk about the bad thoughts. Bad thoughts are called kama vittaka, the thoughts about passion or the sensual thoughts. Vyapada Vittaka. Vyapada means thoughts that's coming from the base of hatred, anger, ill will. And Hinsa Vittaka. Hinsa Vittaka means the thoughts with cruelty. So Buddha says, when I actually recognized these bad thoughts, and when I saw these bad thoughts are in my mind, I quickly reflected this, that for example, let's say a sensual thought or a passionate thought has arisen, then Buddha had reflected that this thought that's in my mind is not going to do any good to me. It's going to bring harm to me, it's going to bring harm to others, and it's going to harm both me and the others. And also it's not going to bring me closer to Nibbana, but it's going to make me away from Nibbana. It's not going to help me to develop goodness and wisdom, but it's actually taking me further and further away from those qualities. So like that, when he reflected, Buddha says, those thoughts subdued. So this is how Buddha had been working since he was a Bodhisattva. And then Buddha goes on to say what he did with the good thoughts. Now you might not realize that removing a bad thought itself is actually a good thing. In that moment, it has given rise to a good thought. If you had been keeping the bad thought, it will take you for a ride and it will pollute your mind, and also it will lead for you all to have emotions. But the minute that you remove that bad thought, it's actually with the help of a good thought that you have done it. See, you engage your rational thinking mind, and that itself has given rise to a good thought that wasn't there before. So in the mind, you have to understand that these two kinds of thought can't exist at the same time. Good and the bad can't exist at the same time. It will be only one at a time. So if the bad thoughts are there, the good thoughts are not there. When the good thought is there, the bad thought is gone. So now that you have managed to get rid of the bad thought, that means a good thought is already there. So what you have to do then is cultivate that, develop that good thought. So what are the good thoughts? The opposite of the passionate thoughts or the sensual thoughts is called Nekkhamma Vittaka. Nekkhamma means thinking of renouncing, thoughts about renunciation. It doesn't mean to become a monk or a nun, but you renounce that bad thought that's already there. Say for instance, you have a thought, a desire to eat a particular food. So if you can manage to renounce that in that moment, that likeness to that particular food, there you go, there's the renouncing thought has come to be now. So all you have to do is then develop it. So that's the Nekkhamma Vittaka. And then when the thoughts of hatred or ill will, anger has arisen, then when you think of, it's going to do harm to me, to the others, and it's not going to help us, like that, and you manage to let go of it, but what's actually happening is you are actually engaging metta. You are actually thinking and considering about you and the others' welfare. So a thought of loving kindness is kind of already there. You are kind of considering about what this thought will do, the damage. And now, after you reflect that, when you see actually, yes, if I keep this thought, it will bring harm upon me and the others, that thought will naturally go away. And what you have to do is develop that loving kind thought further. It's called avyapada vitakka. Vyapada means hatred. Avyapada means non-hatred. So non-hatred means what's there underneath is really loving kindness, metta. So when you manage to give rise to a thought of loving kindness or non-hatred, develop that. And then the other negative thought was what we call the hinsa vitakka, the thoughts of cruelty. And this is actually something very interesting. I was trying to I was reflecting why Buddha had brought these thoughts of cruelty. Because for most of you, I'm sure, you all can see that a lot of these thoughts about passion or the sensual thoughts or the hatred is going on. We can detect that. But I don't know whether you all managed to detect these thoughts about cruelty. But you see, Buddha was talking about this 2600 years ago. See, today the scientists are saying these thoughts of cruelty is actually innate to us. We like to see either the others suffer or we suffer. You see, people watch two animals fight and you become so happy. You know, they have this hen or the cock, what you call them? Cock fights. So you get to, these innocent animals, you set them on, with a lot of anger, and you arouse them, and you get them to go and fight, and you watch it and you become so happy. You have seen how many people watch, rejoice in that, and you see the bullfights, you see wrestling. What is it in there? We are rejoicing in when the others are actually in great pain. So what the scientists are saying is it's actually innate in us to harbor that cruel thoughts in us. Most of the time, if it's not to watch the others suffer, then it's about us. It's called the sadistic symptom or the nature. Then what you do is you harm yourself. Have you seen people cut their arms, and they can let it bleed, and they watch it, or they go and bang their head against walls and this and that. So there is a tendency that either we like to harm ourselves and be happy, or we like to watch others in pain and we kind of enjoy that. You see little kids, no one taught them to go and pull the tail of a little puppy that's in the house, or to pull their whiskers. But kids do it and watch it, and they become very excited and happy, don't they? And they take this, what we call that, they shoot the birds. Plastic? Lusting. You see that birds, they actually target the birds and shoot them, and they become very happy. Not that adults have taught them, but it comes naturally. So it's very interesting. So how Buddha is actually pointing that out here, this Kama Vitakka, Vyapada Vitakka, and Hinsa Vitakka, thoughts about cruelty, because it's also something innate to us, whether we have noticed or not, it's in us. So these thoughts about cruelty can arise in many forms. Sometimes it could be even in a form where actually we let ourselves suffer, maybe over something has happened in the past. We keep on regretting and regretting and regretting. We don't forgive ourselves. So that's another form of punishing ourselves. We suffer. And we actually, sometimes, we like it. It's, when you try to counsel people who suffer from something that has happened in the past, and you try to explain them that's dead, it's gone, no longer it's there. What you must do is forgive yourself and move forward. No, very difficult to forgive. So I think it's also coming from within that we actually like to suffer. We get addicted to that sometimes. So Buddha actually points out these tendencies, and he teaches us how to get rid of them. So when the thoughts of cruelty come to our mind, when we get rid of it, it's actually the karuna or the compassionate thoughts that's actually replacing that cruel thought. So what you have to do then, develop that compassionate thought towards yourself and towards the others. So this is how Buddha had started this journey on purifying the mind. Basically identifying the two different kind of thoughts, good and the bad, and then when the bad thought arises, quickly remove them, kill them. This is the only thing that Buddha had given us permission to kill, the bad thoughts in your mind. So you quickly get rid of them. Don't engage with them, entertain them. What you have to do is get rid of them. And then as soon as they are gone, that means the good thoughts have arisen in your mind, take care of them, develop them. So this way we can purify our mind. This is the starting point. So in this retreat, this is what we are going to do. First we start with selective thinking. Selective thinking means you're going to select the thoughts that you're going to think. You don't allow any and everything, any thought or whatever the thought that comes to your mind, we don't let it be there. What we do is we select which thought should we be selecting. Good thoughts. We select the good thoughts to keep in our mind. So this is what we are going to do now. So in order to do this, first you must have that ability to recognize. This is why I shared this with you, and you can cross-check. This sutta is actually at the back of your book in the on the appendix. It's called Dvedha Vittaka Sutta. And then when you have the ability to recognize them, you know what to do. Now, as I was talking before, I was telling you that there is this nature in the mind that is that it will only allow one kind of a thought to be there at one point of time, either negative or the positive. So what we are going to do now is to be smart. We are going to keep thinking positive thoughts or the good thoughts. So you're going to actively do that. So if you are actively keeping to these good thoughts, then as long as you're keeping a good thought, there is no chance for the negative thoughts to arise. So when we are going to develop this positive thinking, the first thing we focus on is about thinking of the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. The qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha in relation to dispassion, compassion and happiness, tranquility and insight. Those are the 5 categories that you are going to think about when thinking of Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. So this whole afternoon you're going to contemplate on that, and I won't take time to go through how to do it because Bhante had pointed out it very clearly in the book. So normally what he does, he gets you all to read the book because it's all there. If you turn to your page number 22, it's called Recollections, Anussati Bhavana. So please take a couple of minutes to read from page number 22 to page number 28. And I hope you have read the book, the bits that I ask you to read. And if you want to cover, if there's any gaps that's being left, you can read that too, and then starts from page number 22, and it tells you exactly how to reflect on the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. And I'm not going to cover that because I'm thinking of playing one of the Bhante's talks tonight, and actually he teaches very clearly, so I don't want to overlap. So if there's any questions for now, you can ask. So throughout the retreat, your main duty is to protect your mind from negative thoughts.
Good thoughts.
Yes.
That counter bad thoughts, right?
Mm.
Loving kindness to counter hatred.
Mm.
And then later on you say the cruelty.
With compassion.
The compassion.
Mm.
What's the difference between loving kindness and compassion?
There is a big difference. Can you see there's a difference between hatred and the cruelty? There you go. So metta is more or less the concern that we have for the others. It's like the universal benevolence. But when it comes to karuna, it goes into deep aspect. It's more of a deep aspect of metta. And pretty much when you go into that level, you are not only feeling or having, or it's not in the form of just understanding others' suffering, but you get deeply moved about it. You start to resonate with that. So it's a deep aspect of the metta. And later I will touch on that because we do meditate on loving kindness, on compassion, and mudita and upekkha. So later we will talk it in depth. Any other questions?